Hey everybody, it's Paul from Alexander Knife Sharpening and Laser Engraving, back with another episode of the Sharp Life podcast. I decided it would probably be a pretty good use of the podcast to answer the emails and correspondence and things I get on the podcast, because a lot of times questions and things that people send me are repeat from multiple people. And also, sometimes there's some really entertaining and cool stories. Like I got one for you today that I think is pretty cool that someone sent in, one of the followers. And that's what we're going to do today. So today I'm going to go through some of the correspondence, emails. I even got an actual physical letter someone mailed in, which happens from time to time. And let's get started. So the first one, this came in about 9 days ago. This is from Justin. And Justin said, "Hello, Paul. You've helped me with questions before in the past. You may remember I'm a hobbyist knife maker. I've been sharpening for friends and family for years. I've been kicking around the idea of sharpening on the side for money. Unfortunately, I live out of town, so I've been thinking about trying to do a drop off with several businesses near me. He has a full-time job. I'd pick up each week and drop off the previous week's work on a set schedule. If that works out, I'd like to use the money to start a mobile service. I drive about an hour to work each day, so I think I could work like a 1 hour radius from my house with ease. That will cover hundreds of restaurants, butcher shops, and schools alone. Would you have any suggestions?" I think that's a great idea. If you want to, start building a complete side gig, side job of a mobile sharpening service and a way to do it. Yes, I think having a area of about an hour within your home base is a great way to do it. And if you can reach out to places and set up a schedule to do that, that works out really well. I used to do that in the very beginning when I first started sharpening. I used to go to restaurants and do a knife exchange with them. And I'll give you some pointers I know from working with some businesses and restaurants. I don't do a whole lot of that now, only because I'm fortunate enough to not have to. But I will tell you what you will run into. I'll tell you some great things about doing that. And, here's some pointers. So, yeah, another one that I would look to, which a lot of people go to for sharpening, I would look for small hardware stores around you. Not your big box, not your, Lowe's or Home Depot, but small ones, your little tiny private owned ones. And also, the other smaller chains that tend to be, on the smaller side, as long as they're not doing sharpening. So I would do a little reconnaissance. I would check their website, see if they sharpen in-house. If they don't sharpen at all, that would be one I would target. Some of them you might run into where they have these resharp machines, which quite frankly don't do a very good job of sharpening. I don't know how that would go over if they have a resharp machine in the house. They probably won't be interested, but if they don't have anything, or and if they're not sharpening at all, that would be one I would target. That's something you could find out, very quickly, and even with just stopping in and walking around. And if you see there's no resharp machine in there and it doesn't look like they're doing it, then yeah, I would talk to the owner about, "Hey, I'm a local sharpener. I would love to increase the amount of business I'm doing. Would you be interested in offering sharpening services where people could drop off knives and then pick them up a week later?" They might be into that. It's going to depend on a couple factors. It's going to depend on if they have room to store knives until you come back to pick them up. You might want to consider, I think it would probably be a little bit more appealing if you could shorten that timeline of not necessarily the getting them back. The week getting them back may not be too bad, but they might want to see you a little bit more often, or maybe you can find a way to find out, like, hey, if they have a supply of stuff been dropped off, maybe stopping in every 4 days, every 3 or 4 days, or, once they hit a certain amount of stuff that's there, that they send you a text message or send you some form of message. It's going to have to be convenient for them. The upside and what you want to sell them on would be the fact that, hey, if people bring in their knives and drop them off for me to sharpen, they're also probably going to walk around your store and possibly buy something while they're there. It's going to bring customers into the store. So that's the bonus for the hardware store. And that's how I would pitch it. I would just, work on your delivery and maybe consider, once you get that first one, maybe doing it a little more frequently than once a week, or seeing what schedule they think would be good for them. So, it's just totally going to depend on the place. Some places may be completely fine with a week. Now, restaurants. I did the restaurant thing a lot. I have a very good relationship with the local hardware store, which is literally around the corner from where I live. They refer a lot of people to me. They have my business cards. They have directions to my location. So I love that kind of stuff. Butcher shops. Yeah, you can check with butcher shops. There's not as many of them as you would think nowadays. We just got one, which is really cool. And it's actually right next to my hardware store, which is also awesome. But that's one you could check with. They're probably not going to be looking to have stuff sharpened on a weekly basis. And even your restaurants, when I did restaurants, I did a monthly knife exchange. And this is what I would tell you to do there. Some guys provide the knives. I wouldn't do that. That's another huge investment. And if money's tight and you're trying to save for mobile gear and maybe a van or, some type of like Sprinter van, something that you could sharpen in, you're not going to want to be having to put out additional money for knives, and then they're your property and they're going to beat them up. So restaurants are extremely hard on knives. Very, very hard. I learned this the hard way when I got my first restaurant client. I remember when I would pick up the knives after a month, they looked like they'd been in a war. Now, the one thing I always did with my restaurants, I never supplied the knives. I have them supply the knives, and we would do a monthly exchange. So if they had, say they wanted me to deliver 20 knives, they needed to have 20 other knives. So I wanted them, if they wanted 20 knives every month, they need to have 40 knives. And they're not going to get these restaurants. They're not going out. They're not getting, Wusthoffs or Globals or Schuns or anything that's nice like that for their preps, for their chefs. When you get restaurant knives, the only nice knives are usually the head chefs. If there's a head chef or a couple head chefs, you can pick their knives out immediately. Like if they actually throw them in to be sharpened along with everything else. And then the other things are going to be like a good quality one would be like a Victorinox or a Dexter. But a lot of them are going to be, these restaurant supply store knives, chef's knives that they're not terrible, but we're talking $20, $30 knives that they're going to beat the hell out of. And that's why I would never supply them for a restaurant. Let them buy them and then they own them. And that's the best thing, because what if you buy them 20 knives and then a month later they go, you know what, this isn't for us. Now you're out a huge cost that you invested in all those knives. So even though there are restaurant services out there that supply knives, and the ones that do, you should see the knives. They're terrible. They're worse than the $30 knives. So a decent restaurant is going to want, a better knife than they're going to get from a lot of these sharpening companies that supply knives and do them on a weekly rotation or in a more frequent rotation. If they buy a semi-decent knife, they're not going to need it sharpened weekly. So I would look to do like a monthly exchange would be what I would look to do. Now, what's the downside? The downsides are many times they're not ready when you come in to pay you, which is not fun. I've had that happen where they've called me up and said, "Hey, we need our knives." And then I bring them in a box full of 20 new knives, and they're running around grabbing knives to give me to take back with me. Like they didn't have them ready to go. And then half the time you get them and they're dirty because they're literally like rinsing it off and throwing it in a Tupperware bin for you to take out. The other annoying thing that I had happen many times was that the person who could write a check wasn't there, or only a certain manager can write a check. I would like them to have it ready for me to go with the box of knives so I could just go in, here's your new knives, walk out and go. But many times that did not happen. So just know that going in, that was one of the reasons for me why I stopped doing restaurants, because I had so many residential customers and chefs that were willing to come to me. I didn't have to waste my time driving, waiting for people, waiting for checks, sitting, and the worst part where I was, I would do this downtown area we have here in Alexandria, but half the time I was parked in the fire lane or parked illegally, and I'm hoping like, man, I hope I don't get a ticket sitting here waiting because I'm waiting for someone to come out and give a check, because I didn't want to have to pay for parking or try and find parking and then walk 2 blocks or 3 blocks with a case of knives. So I'd usually park right out in front of the restaurant. And a lot of times my better places, I could call ahead and tell them, "Hey, I'm a minute out. I'll be there in a minute." And then if I had a great relationship with them, the manager or the restaurant manager or somebody would come out and be like, "Here you go. Here's your check. Here's the tub of knives. Hand them the new knives," and I'm in and out and go. So if you can get that kind of a setup going, it's great. Don't be surprised if it doesn't run that smoothly all the time. The good thing is it is a great learning experience because restaurants beat the hell out of their knives. So you will have a lot of knives that need a lot of work. That was one of the places, like a lot of you guys that follow my sharpening, that I always talk about, I always start at 120 grit. Even if the knife only needs 1 or 2 strokes, it was doing restaurant knives that really caused me to do that. I used to, for a little while in the very beginning, I would look at a knife and be like, "Oh, maybe I could start it at A30. And I always regretted it because later on I would find a chip or whatever, or it ended up taking way too much time. And that's why I always start at 120. So even if it needs just 1 stroke or 2 strokes and it's raised the burr, I still do that. I don't try and guess at what level. And one of the reasons was restaurant knives, because quite frankly, restaurant knives, they need a lot of grinding. You will be doing a lot of work on that 120 grit belt when you get them in. You will be amazed at the condition they are in. And you probably won't see that many really high quality ones unless the head chef turns their knives in. A lot of times when I have like really good chefs, they bring me their knives directly. They wouldn't even, put them in with a bunch of knives just being sent out to be sharpened. I did have one place that did it though. I do remember this one chef had some really nice Japanese knives and he just threw them in with all the other junky knives for the prep cooks. But yeah, I think that's a great idea. It's a perfect way to start. Find a couple reliable clients that want to work with you and just kind of grow it from there. And then, start saving your money. Also, it'll give you a chance to determine whether mobile sharpening's for you. That was kind of how I ended up doing what I do, because I only did the restaurant stuff for a few months. And literally when I first opened, I probably maybe a half a year, maybe 6 months I did it. And then I realized I could be making more money because I had so many residential clients, and time that I was wasting on the road and wasting in traffic and waiting on managers. I could have been sharpening other knives that I was getting paid for that people were willing to bring to me or mail to me. So I had that, I don't know, advantage or what you would call it. I had really great circumstances that I didn't have to go out and do those kind of things. I did them in the beginning, but then, like I said, I realized like I got to where I could be picky and say, I don't need their business. I don't need restaurant knives. The restaurants that I do now, they have to be willing to come to me. And I still have some that come in. But the majority of them I kind of got rid of, and And that's that. Yeah, but all those are good. Schools, yeah, that's another one too. I know some guys in the guild. I've never bothered with a school. I do know some of the guys in the guild have schools that are clients, the kitchens in there. So that is one that you could look at. I would definitely approach restaurants. I would definitely approach small hardware stores that aren't sharpening. I think your idea is good, and I think that's a great way to start. So good luck with that, Justin. I hope that helps some. All right, let's go into another one. So let's see what we got here. This one's the little bit of a story one. I think this one's pretty cool. Hi, Paul. I may be a bit of an exception to your usual audience. I'm a 70-year-old woman who loves projects and tinkering. I retired from the corporate world years ago and happily continued my lifelong habit of learning new things. About a year ago, I was given a Leatherman ARC, which sent me down the multi-tool rabbit hole that eventually led to restoring Swiss Army knives and giving them to friends. Before long, it turned into an eBay store where I sell Swiss Army knives I win from TSA auctions. I don't just flip them, though. Each one is sanitized, sharpened, oiled, polished, and buffed before it goes out. I'm having an absolute ball while many of my friends are knitting. I'm cleaning up knives. I've been sharpening Swiss Army knives by hand and feel I've gotten pretty good at it. After working on many knives, recently I added a Wen 1x30 belt sander to help with customizing scales, mods, and related projects. I want to introduce myself and let you know that I've watched a lot of your videos for educational purposes. As I build out this hobby, I haven't made it through your entire playlist yet, but I did notice a video where you sharpened a Swiss Army knife using a water wheel, which caught my attention. It's tough to make it through my playlist now. We're getting close to 400 total videos, so that would take a while. That would be a Tormek machine, and I actually designed my own jig for doing the little tiny knife on Swiss Army knives. But let me finish here. I'm currently out of the country and have an eBay store on pause until I return next week. She's back by now. One amusing side note, my customers have no idea I'm a 70-year-old woman. I've been addressed as sir more times than I can count, and I've decided to leave it that way. Unfortunately, I don't think my customer base would quite understand. In the past 6 months alone, I've grossed about, get this guys, 15,000, which keeps me happily funded for more auctions. Finally, thank you for your past service and for sharing your knowledge, Melissa. Melissa, this is fantastic. I absolutely love that you're not knitting. I think it's great that when we have women sharpeners in the Guild of Professional Sharpeners that I belong to, we have women in there. It's not a huge portion, but we have a few. There are women sharpeners all over the world. And we even helped a young lady in Africa get started. We helped her get a Tormek machine in Africa, which was not an easy thing to do. Very cool. Now, I also really love the fact that you have taken TSA auctions, which is something I recommend to people all the time. I tell people when they are wanting to learn how to sharpen EDC knives that they need to practice with them because they can be very expensive and you don't want to screw up somebody's EDC. And I always tell them, go bid on some TSA auctions, win a bunch of cheap EDC knives, sharpen them, practice them, beat up on them, and learn to do those. And if you do 30 or 40 EDC knives, you will get to the point where you are very comfortable sharpening just about anything. That said, I think what you did is even better. You took it to the next level. I've never thought of that. I do know a guy that does buck knife refurbishes on eBay too. He's not even doing the auctions. He's doing them for somebody. But we actually even call him Buck. But he gets knives from this guy who buys all kinds of old used buck knives. He refurbishes them for him, and that guy flips them and sells them on auctions on eBay. But I love that you're not even a middleman. You're getting the Swiss Army knives yourselves. You are refurbishing them and then selling them to the tune of 15,000. That's fantastic. There's some people that would do backflips to make 15,000 in that period of time as a side gig. I think that's awesome, Melissa. I will share your eBay link that you sent here. I will put it in the description of the podcast because this is a video version, even though it's going to be audio and some things on YouTube, it will be a video version. So if you guys are interested in seeing her auction link, I will put that in there. And yeah. And you know what? 70 years old, we have a lot of 70-year-old sharpeners. In fact, the majority of my audience runs in that 65 to 80 range. That is the overwhelming majority of my audience. And many sharpeners are doing it as a second career, as a retirement job like I am. I'm a little bit younger. I'm, at 57, but that's because I wanted, I was in law enforcement and I retired at 47. So I had to find something else to do. Yeah, that's awesome, Melissa. Congratulations. I think it's great. I wouldn't be embarrassed at all to say that you're a woman. I think it's awesome, but if you were to keep that secret too, I do understand where you're coming from there, but just know we do have women sharpeners. One area we see them a lot in is scissors, because the salons, I guess, and also seamstresses. That's a big area of sharpening, are scissor sharpeners. Some of the very best scissor sharpeners out there are women. In fact, one of the very best instructors for scissors is a woman, Benita Shears, and she's very well known and knows everything about scissors and has been doing it for decades. So I wouldn't be afraid to put your name out there. If you're good, you're good. Who cares whether you're a man or a woman? But I do get it. If you think it might hurt your auctions, you don't need to tell anybody. Just go by Mel, and that could be either. So, all right, let's see what else we got. Richard said, "Hi, Paul. I stumbled on your channel on YouTube and watching what fun stuff you do in your shop. I'm just at the beginning of my own career sharpening with my own business. Wonder if I can ask you for advice. I have sharpened on and off for many years, both for myself and for others. I'm a hunter and in need of sharp tools. I have never sharpened with anything other than loose whetstones, but have now bought a sharpening system that you recognize well. I have a Tormek T8, great choice, which I'm starting out. Also realize that I need both a polisher and a belt sander. I'm really not made of money at the moment, and I'm looking for equipment for reasonable money, and I cannot afford anything. I wonder if you can advise me about a polisher and which discs I should start with for both blades and shafts, and where are these available? Are they on Amazon? I also found a belt sander on Amazon. Could that be something to start with?" Okay. Yes. And Richard's in Sweden too, people. Sometimes the overseas, depending on where you're at, some guys have difficulty getting certain gear, and it can be tough. I know we have a lot of guys in Canada, and they cannot get everything. Europe, the guys in Europe are always, telling me how difficult it is to get certain things that we have access to in the United States. I do get that. As far as an inexpensive way to start polishing, yes, I have a very expensive high-end jet buffer. That's absolutely not something that everybody needs. Very expensive. If I was looking for an inexpensive way to get into buffing and polishing knives, it would be what you see me using in my shop all the time that I use more than my jet buffer, which is jewelry buffers. So jewelry buffer, you can get one for anywhere from about $50 to $100. They run in that range depending on what stuff comes with them. For $100, you're going to get a bunch of regular buffs, like 4-inch and 3-inch size cotton buffs. The nice thing about jewelry buffers is they're very safe compared to full-size buffers. So if you have a big giant buffer like my jet buffer, which I think is, I don't remember if it's one horse or horse and a half, it's really powerful. Like scary, dangerous, powerful. You have to, if there's a tool in the shop that can hurt you, it's the buffer. Okay. It can, if you don't buff properly, it could throw a knife at you. You have to be very careful with a real deal buffer. With a jewelry buffer, you don't have to be as careful. You're not going to get hurt on a jewelry buffer. And that's one reason why I like them. I don't want to say you can't get hurt, but I mean, the odds are very, very, very low that you would get any kind of significant injury with a jewelry buffer. Because if you see jewelry buffers, a lot of times it's touching the person's hand, and when they're working with them, or if they're using little radial discs, they're not going to hurt you. They have a lot of speed, but they don't have a lot of torque. My jet buffer, which is a full size, giant motor that's got a ton of torque. Inexpensive way to do and start doing buffing, that would be look to a jewelry buffer. Hopefully you can get them in Sweden. As far as the things that I use on them, the radial discs, those little fan discs, you can get them on Amazon. I would suspect you could get them in Sweden because they're made by a company called Dededco, which is a subsidiary of 3M, and they're used heavily in the dental industry and jewelry industry. I would be really surprised if you can't get them. Every country is doing dental work and jewelry work, and that's the two big markets for that product. We would be a very small portion of their business. They're fantastic polishers. They're not cheap, though. For a set of 4-inch radial discs to put on one of those buffers, you're talking about $50. Now, the good thing is that set of discs is going to last you more than a year. I've gotten about 2 years, sometimes even more, out of a set of 4-inch radial discs. Even though it's not inexpensive, that disc, if you use it properly, don't push really hard on it, let the disc do the work, it will last you at least 2 years. It does a wonderful job of buffing. Now, what do you need as far as discs go? If I was starting out and money was tight, I would get a 220, which is the red one, and a 400 to 600, which is the blue ones. And that's all I would get. You don't need the 1 micron, 3 micron, which are really high polishing that are higher up there. The majority of the knives out there, you can do what you need to do with those two grits, with the 220 and the 400, 600. So the red and blue discs, and then the rest you could do with the regular cotton buffs that are going to come with that jewelry buffer. And that would be the inexpensive way I would start there. Now, as far as a sander, there's a ton of inexpensive options for belt sanders. The cheapest way that you can go on something that's going to be useful to you would be a 1x30. I like variable speed or low speed. If you can get a buck tool 1x30 low speed knife sharpener, it has a very nice angle guide. It comes with one that's probably exactly the same as the KFMK one that a lot of you guys know about. Buck Tool's now putting that on that machine. With it being a low speed grinder running at about 1700 RPMs, it's the perfect speed for sharpening. You're not going to overheat a knife. I don't love non-variable speed or non-low speed gear for sharpening at all. I had a guy tonight who was texting me about buying a Harbor Freight. A Harbor Freight, to me, is useless if you're not going to convert it. If you're not going to make it variable speed, that thing runs at like 3,500 RPMs. It's way too fast for sharpening. Way too fast. It makes it harder to control. It builds up too much heat. And nowadays, we have such great options out there with the Vevor machine, with the Toolker machines, with the Buck tool is probably the most affordable one that's in, that has everything that we would used to have to do if you went back 5 years where we had to build half of this stuff ourselves. We now have all these machines that have this stuff now, so we don't have to do that. Like, I converted a Buck tool 2x42 to variable speed several years ago. Now we have the new one that has variable speed built into it. You don't have to do that. So that's a nice thing today is you can buy a machine for a small investment, under $150. You can get a really nice belt sharpener that won't overheat material and will be a really nice dedicated sharpener that you can always use and add to other things. So even if you get a bigger machine or other things, you can turn it into a dedicated strop. And you guys that have seen my shop, you just see like I have a lot of gear in here, and I still have a lot of the gear that I started with. My first two, which were Harbor Freight conversions that I made variable speed, they're my dedicated stropping machines. I have kept them around just in case or something breaks. You know, I have one out in my shed and I have one in here. I also look for gear that I know even if I replace it at some point, it will hopefully still have some value and still find a use for it somewhere in my shop or as a backup should something break. All right, Richard, I hope I helped there with the questions you had. Let me just run through here. Where should you buy them? If they have Amazon there, which I think they're just about everywhere in the world, that would be where I would look for them. Okay, we got another one here. My name's Cody. I've been watching your videos for a few weeks now. Sharpening has always been something I mess around with here and there, but I was enjoying doing it. And now I've been watching all your videos. I'm thinking about starting a sharpening business on the side. Something small, nothing too crazy, but I was looking at equipment and I have no idea what I should get. So I have a request for you. I have $1,000 to $1,500 budget. I want to do knives, garden tools, and lawnmower blades. Anything else you could recommend I should be doing, but I was wondering if you could make a starter kit for me, everything it would need to get going that is somewhere in that budget. At least give me advice as what I should start this venture with. I'm understanding you're busy and a little help to get going. Really hoping you would give it to me, but I understand if you can't right now. Thank you for your time. Have a great day. All right. First off, $1,000 to $1,500 is a great budget to be able to start with. Absolutely make a great pick or two or maybe even 3 machines to get started to do all of the things that you want to do. With $1,000 to $1,500, I would say there was a period of time where I would say start with a 1x30 and a 2x42. With that kind of money, you can definitely get one of each. And I love having one of each of those. Maybe build out a Vevor or a Toolker 1x30 for your smaller knives and that kind of stuff. One of my absolute most favorite sharpeners right now is this new buck tool machine that I just recently reviewed, that we made the angle guides for with the magnetic lock from Mag Switch. That machine is fantastic. It can do just about everything. When we're talking knives, from paring knives to big kitchen knives. But the other nice thing with a 2x42 is some of the other things that you mentioned, which would be lawnmower blades. You can absolutely sharpen a lawnmower blade on that machine. In fact, using its regular angle guide that it comes with, the nice big steel one, and a angle guide, you could set that for like garden blades or lawnmower blades are sharpened at about 30 to 35 degrees. You can set that to 30, 35 degrees and get in there and sharpen that lawnmower blade. Lawnmower blades are sharpened at pretty low grits, so you don't have to take, this is not a thing that you need to bring all the way up to, 600 grit or anything like that. They're very low grits. A lot of people don't even deburr them. It just needs to have the proper angle and be sharp. It's going to deburr itself, actually, because they spin so fast. And you can 100% do a lawnmower blade on there. You can even do, one of the things I love doing lawnmower blades on, believe it or not, is a 18 by half inch handheld file. If you guys know what I'm talking about there, with a belt file. Awesome for doing lawnmower blades. I put a lawnmower blade in a vise and I'll take that powered file to it, and you can hit all the weird curves and everything in there. That's one of my favorite ways to do a lawnmower blade, and it's super inexpensive. You can get one of those for about $30. It's one of the Wen tools I have. I'm not a huge fan of Wen stuff. I find they have either really good stuff or really junky stuff. So they're not one of my favorites. I do have a Wen 18 by ½ inch file, an electric corded one. They do make cordless ones too. It's great. It's super useful. And I've used it also for modifying a lot of angle guides and machines where I've had to get in and sand stuff down and reshape things. So it's a very useful tool. I would look to maybe something like that. But a 1x30 and a 2x42, they would be my picks for sure. As far as like a Tormek machine or something like that, I don't think you need to go that road, but with that kind of budget, you could even keep your eye out for like a used Tormek machine, because you could probably pick one up for about $400 or $500 and get a 600 grit CBN wheel. And then you know, with one Tormek machine and a 1x30 and a 2x42, you have a really awesome sharpening shop right there. The other thing, another tool you could look for, well, you know, you didn't mention it, but I do love it for garden tools, but maybe a twice as sharp machine, or what we call a Taz, from Wolf Industries. Now, they're not always necessarily cheap. A brand new one's like $700, so it would be a huge portion of your budget. But I would keep my eye out for a used one. All right. That machine has not changed in like 50 years. I have two in my shop. I bought one new, and I bought one that was probably 50 years old at the time that I bought it. It's still running great. It's my dedicated salon shear machine. So I have it set up for doing salon shears as a 800 grit diamond stone on there. And that's its only purpose in life, to do salon shears. But I would keep my eye out for them on eBay or any place where someone might be selling one, because a lot of guys I know have picked them up for $150 or $100. If someone knows the value of it, they're going to want more money. But it looks like it basically looks like a typical grinder, except it's got an arm on the front where you can do guided sharpening on them for scissors. And I love it for garden tools like hedgers, pruners. I have plenty of videos showing how I do that. That would be a machine I would keep my eye out for, because you can definitely pick one up. Or if you find an older sharpener who's retiring or anything like that, these machines are out there. And it's one of the machines they always joked with the owner about, that like he built them too good because they never have to replace them, because these things have been running for 40, 50 years and still going. I mean, the one I have in here is one of the absolute oldest models. So if you see a red one, the red ones are the newer models, but there was a blue was before the red. So if you see blue, it's a little bit older. And before that was the one that I have, and mine's silver. And that's the really old ones. And I would buy one in a second. I think I paid $100 for mine, which is great. That's a machine I can absolutely, and same with Tormek machines. Even if it's an old T7. T7s are fantastic machines, and you can upgrade them. T8s, though, the T8's been around for a long time now too. Again, this is a machine that a lot of woodworkers get it. A lot of people that, do woodworking buy it to sharpen their chisels. So these aren't machines that were being beat up. But again, it's a machine that was so well built, they rarely ever break. I mean, my Tormek Black, which was an anniversary edition, came with a 50-year warranty. That's how confident they are of that machine. So a Tormek machine, if you see a used one at a yard sale or a woodworker getting rid of it or on eBay, that is also a machine that I'm never afraid to buy used, because it's pretty rare that you're going to find one that's been beat up, overused, or in bad condition. Something worth keeping an eye out for. But $1,500 is a great budget. Just don't do like I did. My very first sharpener was a Wicked Edge, and I outgrew it in a week. I knew by the end of my first week, after being up till 2:00 in the morning, sharpening knives, and also feeling like I was going to need a massage the next day from all the shoulder work from manually sharpening, I knew that was a bad decision for my first sharpener when I started my business. And then my next bad decision was my next purchase was a Tormac, which was a huge improvement over the Wicked Edge as far as speed goes, but it still took a lot of time compared to where my Tormac setup is today. So that evolved over time too. I now use CBN wheels and I have 3 Tormac machines. So if you watch me using my Tormac machine, I have almost like an assembly line. I just work my way down the line and I can do a knife in about 4 minutes. Now, on one machine, on one good Tormac machine, I can still do it in almost the same amount of time because I can change a wheel out on that thing in probably not as good today as I used to be, but when I had only one machine, I could change it in less than 15 seconds. And it's got that little speed nut and it was made to come off really quickly, so it's easy to change the wheel on there. You don't need 3 like I do. I'm spoiled. And as I made more money and didn't feel like changing the wheels, I bought extra machines. That would wouldn't be my first choice. A Tormac machine is one of those things that I think is great to have. It's awesome. You can build your entire sharpening business around it. My buddy Baz in Australia, that's how he runs his entire business. And there are ways to make it quicker, which I have a whole series on. That's why having a 1x30 or a 2x42 is super helpful. If you have a knife that's very beat up, you can start it on a belt sander and then take it to the Tormac to do your finishing edge on there. The beauty of the Tormac machine is the knife looks like it's brand new when it's done. The bevels it cuts, the ability for that machine to keep a perfectly even bevel once you learn how to use it properly is second to nothing out there. Like 1x30s are great, 2x42s are great, but the quality from a Tormac is actually next level. Now, is that required for everything? No, it's not. If you're trying to cover all the bases, it is something that's nice to have on your wish list. I just wouldn't put it at the front of when you're opening your business as the first machine that you're getting. You can, and I don't want to say that you can't. I mean, some people, that's what they want to do. Just know there's going to be things that you're going to need to do to be sure that you can keep up with the pace of work that you're going to get. Now, I can sharpen all day on my Tormacs and handle everything that comes in. Like I said, I have 3 machines. I have CBN wheels as low as 80 grit. I have an 80, I have a 200, I have a 400, I have a 600, I have 1,000, I have a 4,000 grit. So I have lots of stones, lots of ability to, if a knife is in very bad shape. In fact, I'm going to be showing a video this week of a Japanese knife repair that I did on the Tormac, the whole thing. And I used the 80 grit wheel because it was so beat up and had so many chips on there. But I wanted to show people that, yes, you can do a repair of even a really beat up Japanese knife on something like a Tormac and get it sharpened and in beautiful shape. And in not a whole lot amount of time longer than it would take if you had a belt sharpener. For all of these reasons and how useful that belt sharpener is the reason I think it should be the first thing that you get. Because if there was one machine that I can run my entire business with, it's either a 1x30 or 2x42. I could do everything all day long with that, either one of those machines. So that's why I think that should be your first choice, because you're always going to use that. You're always going to find uses for a good 1x30 or a good 2x42 or both. So that's why I would direct you to look to those first. And then you can start looking to, more exotic stuff like the Tormac machine. And then even there, I have 3 TS Prof machines, which I love. They're all 100% manual hand sharpening. But there's times where that's my go-to also, where I pull out my KO3, use that. There's no shortage of types of machines that you can have in your shop. My goal is just always to make sure that it's something I'm using and is useful to my business. So I try very hard not to bring in something that's not going to be used or a waste of time. but I do like having options, at least for the way that I run my business. Since I work out of a home shop, I have people's knives for probably a lot longer than, your average market sharpener or a storefront where someone's dropping them off and maybe expecting it back right away. My clients know that their knives are here for a few days, and that gives me plenty of time to decide what I'm going to sharpen their particular items on. And I can pick from what I think is going to be the very best item for their particular knife or tool or whatever it is that I'm sharpening. And just a couple more quick updates. So I did want to let you guys know I recently spoke with Super Grit, and I talked to them about making introductory sharpening kits for new sharpeners, and they really like that idea. So I'm going to be following up with them to see how that's coming along. But they were going to build a kit for you of a couple Bora 7 belts and then a nice variety of the different sharpening options that they have. So some Accelerons, some Trizacs, some Sunmax belts. And so you could get like buy just one little kit, whether it be for a 1x30, 2x42. They want to make them for the most popular sharpening sizes. And then where you can just go in and buy one of those kits and you have what you need to get started and sharpen. They like that idea that I gave to them. So I just got to follow up with them and see how that's coming. But I think that's a good thing for all of you. Could make it a lot easier, especially for the new guys that are just starting out. They can just go and kind of in one spot buy something and they'll have all the different belts that they need. And they'll also have the option to try some of the other varieties of belts to see if there's something they like more than another one, all in one kit. So that's one thing we are working on. Any of the 1x30 owners asked if I would have Thor come up with a way to either shrink down the design that we used for the buck tool for the 1x30s. And I talked to Thor about it, and our original thought on it was we didn't think it was a great idea. And here's why. Well, the main reason being so many of those Vevor 1x30s don't have magnetic platens. So that wasn't going to solve anything for all the people that have no platens that a magnet won't stick to. So we didn't want to do that because it just seemed kind of a waste of time. After sitting around and thinking about it, he wrote me and said, you know what? I love a good challenge. And I decided to come up with a completely new design for the Vevor machine. And he sent me the prototype. I started printing it out and putting it together yesterday. I'm waiting on a few parts, but I really love what he did here. And I think it's going to be fantastic. So once I have those few parts in, I can do some more thorough testing on it. So it requires a couple screws. It's all really basic nuts and bolts stuff. And I also went out and priced those to see if we provide those, what that cost is going to be. And if we buy them in bulk, the few parts that we need, which are a couple bolts and some washers and things, isn't terribly expensive. So we will probably provide that unless we decide to just do the 3D print and let everyone else go get their own hardware. But it might be best if we just provide the hardware for everyone. I don't know, something we'll still be discussing, but I have to tell you, this design it just shows you how awesome it is when you have a great engineer to work with, like Thor. So I love the the things that he just comes up with, and this one is just fantastic. So I'm happy collaborating with him again on another project and on another thing for sharpening, and I will keep you abreast as to how it goes. So we're also deciding how we're going to market this, and we going through those details. Initially, just like right out of the gates, I love what he did here, and I can't wait to reveal it to everybody, show it to you, and again, just like with the buck tool, I will try and, make sure that we get everything in place to get it out to you guys as quick as possible. But I think just like we did with the buck tool, I think this is going to be kind of innovative and very different than all the other solutions that people have come up with before. And I think what he did here just really shows what a fantastic engineer he is, because it's pretty genius in my opinion, and a very nice design. And so far, yes, it's going to be the same angles. There's going to be a 10, a 15, a 17, and a 20. I can talk to him, maybe adding some more. I know that'll be the next question. Everybody will be like, oh, well, can we get this particular angle or that particular angle? We always try and hit the main ones. But right now, just know that's in the works. It's being tested. It looks like it's going to be a go. We just have to work out details, logistics. Because keep in mind, Thor's in Australia and I'm here in the U.S. And we have, the little bit of details there to work out. And because he is going to market this item too. So we have to work out, who's going to handle what regions and everything else. But we got some very cool things coming. And I think we'll have some very cool details to release on that very soon. So I'll keep you all in the loop on the 1x30 new angle guide. And once I can start revealing it, I will do that once I get Thor's permission to maybe show a little bit more of what we have done there. All right. So I will talk to you soon. I'm going to end this here. Hope you guys are having a great day. One other thing, let me show a couple things. For those of you on the video, I will put this in the video. If not, my regular website for my business is alxsharpen.com. It's just like it sounds, alxsharpen.com. On there, if you look at the links, you will see there is one for sharpeners, and I have a whole bunch of links to all the different items and things that I use in my shop and that I recommend. There's also the free 3D file section, which has all the different files that I make available to everybody that has a 3D printer and that they can download themselves. Now, the new 1x31, sorry guys, that one's not going to be free. That's going to be marketed solely by Thor and I. And it could even possibly end up being just Thor. It just depends on how we work out all the details with that. But that one's not going to be free. He put a lot of work into this, and we are going to be marketing that ourselves. But other than that, there's lots of, great free files there. So check out my 3D files. And for those of you that don't have a 3D printer, I do make a lot of the things there available. You can buy them through me, and I will ship them to you. Shipped out a little over 100 of the buck tool angle guides, and we've had really fantastic feedback on them. People absolutely love them. So that's what's going on. Don't forget, check out our sponsors too. The other thing on the website is there is a link for followers perks. So if you're a follower of the channel and you go there, you will see I have discount codes for all kinds of stuff. One of them being super grit. So if you've got a new 2x42, you're going to have to get belts for it. They have special pricing just for my followers, and there's discount codes in there. And if you go to their site and you use the discount codes, you get our special pricing and you get 10% off on everything in the Super Grit store. And there's some other fantastic ones in there. I won't go over all of them, but there's also some really other great discounts in there from some other providers and people that provide us discounts. So that's it. I will finally shut up now. I will wish you all a great day, and I will talk to you soon.